Hey, Becky, how are you?
Hey, Jim, doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. So Becky McDaniel Simms is joining us today. She is with Southern Oaks Title, a title company. They have an office in Baton Rouge, but from what I understand, you can go to people's offices and do title closings and things like that.
Correct. Yes, we're licensed. We can close anywhere in the state of Louisiana, so we can send a notary to you, or you can come to our office on Essen and close.
Awesome. So that's convenience. What I'm trying to get across to people, and why I have Becky on my show today, other than the fact that you're an awesome closing company, is the fact that all of that ties in obviously to construction. You do a lot of home sale related closings. I'm sure you do commercial stuff, but home sales is probably the bulk of what you guys and gals do it.
It is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to learn a little bit about you personally, kind of get into your life a little bit, and find out. So, where are you from? What kind of brought you to? I know you live in Livingston Parish. What kind of brought you here?
So I grew up in Clinton, Louisiana. I have my parents, Farrell and Lorraine McDaniel, and then I have 4 siblings, all girls. So there's 5 girls in our family. And then I married my husband. He's from Livingston Parish, and we moved over here in 2017 when I got married to him.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did you just say 4 sisters?
I do have 4 sisters, yes.
So there's 5 y'all total, and all girls?
5 girls, yes.
Wow, your dad is an angel. That's a lot. Trust me, I have 2, and it's a lot. I can only imagine 5, but I have had the opportunity to meet most of your, I think all of your sisters, and they are all well-rounded people. So shout out to Dad and Mom for their raising skills with the McDaniel clan.
Well, thank you.
So any children?
Yes. So me and Billy have 6 children together. We have a blended family. So we have 5 girls and 1 boy.
Awesome.
So we have 4 that are currently living at home.
6 children.
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Now, the kids go to Denham High School, or what ages are they?
So we have 2 that are graduated, and they graduated when we lived in Livingston. So they both graduated from Doyle. And then we have 1 that's over at Ponchatoula High, and then we have 1 at Denham High, and then we have 2 at Lewis Vincent Elementary.
Okay. Awesome. My kids went to Lewis Vincent also. Great school over there.
It is, yes. We love it.
And now they go to Denham High School, so that's interesting. So okay, you're in the closing business, and I would imagine there's some background there, maybe something you knew about before you even went to college and decided you wanted to be in the title closing business. Who would you say was the biggest influence in that? So
my dad was a developer, so he developed property. So from when I was about 8 years old. Even before then, I would always follow him around. We would go look at property. I would go to closings with him. So I think at age 8, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. We went to a closing and I sat through it and I said, "Dad, this is what I want to do." And he laughed at me because he didn't think that was right for me. So,
wow.
But years later, I think I just got a passion for it from him. And I always love real estate. And that's just where I ended up. So that's
pretty cool. So at 8 years old, you knew this was the type of business you wanted to be in.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because at 8 years old, I thought I was going to be a weatherman. Kid you not. I would watch Pat Shingleton, and that's what I wanted to do. And I'm not doing the weather right now. So that's pretty awesome. And anybody that knows Becky, she is as knowledgeable as you can be in that type of field. She's a smart lady anyway, but when it comes to the world of real estate, she is not only knowledgeable on the closing side, she's knowledgeable on all sides of that industry. So you would know when you met her that Becky probably grew up in this business. It almost appears as if it's in your blood. And it truly is. Your dad, I have met your dad, and I will tell you one thing, he demands respect, just from his, some people you're just around and you just know that they know what they're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. Her dad, how old is your dad now?
Don't make me lie. I think he is 67.
Yeah, and he moves around like he's younger than me, but a super guy, and really, you've got a lot of those traits. I see a lot of you and him, and that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks.
Sure. So take us back to your senior year of high school. Okay, you had to decide on college and all those sorts of things. I'm going through that now with my son. He's going into his senior year, and at some point, I had to sit him down. I had to say, okay, Trevor, you're gonna, what do you want to do? And it was weird for me because when I was a senior in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I'm like, if he's anything like me, he's just going to look at me with a blank stare. So take us back to your senior year and your decision on college. I mean, you said that when you were 8 years old, you kind of knew that this was the field you wanted to be in, but was there any kind of backup plan, or was it like, this is definitely what I'm aiming for? But, kind of take me back to that.
I don't think I had a backup plan. So my senior year, I always was a fan of LSU. So I knew that's where I wanted to go. My dad had graduated from LSU also. So that was just, our choice was either LSU or Southeastern. He didn't want us to move away from the house. So he wanted us to stay at home while we went to college. So obviously I chose LSU because I liked the big campus. I loved the football games and all the extra stuff that it had to offer.
The quad.
Yes.
Hanging out at the quad. Yeah, everybody hung out at the quad.
So college was an easy choice for me. So that was just kind of a given. I always knew that I wanted to go to LSU. So that's where I ended up going.
Awesome.
So.
Go Tigers. And so you graduate from there and you're out into the world. And I guess the first question would be, how long have you been in the title business total after you got out of college?
So this May made 21 years. So I started working at a title company when I was 17, the week after I graduated high school. And so I kind of worked my way through, I started off doing microfiche scanning, and then kind of worked my way up through every position there until I graduated college. So
okay, 21 years. That's a while. That's a lot of experience, and that's important, folks. When you're choosing a title company, probably, in my opinion, the most important aspect of a title company is the experience they have. Because I would imagine if you miss steps, or you're investigating a property to find out prior ownership, experience goes a long way towards success. In finding out who owned that prior, or if you run into a problem, which we're going to get into problems maybe that you can run into in the title industry. Did you ever do anything else, Becky? What previous jobs maybe? Did you ever work with anything else?
No. I worked at a restaurant in high school until I graduated. And then from there, I've steadily worked at law firms or title companies throughout my career.
What'd you do at the restaurant? Just waited tables or?
Well, it was a restaurant in Clinton, so it wasn't really a full service restaurant. It was kind of like I just was like a cashier.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And Clinton, a beautiful, beautiful part of the country here in Louisiana. Gets a little hilly in Clinton, and that's always a good thing to change the scenery. So I love Clinton. What led you to decide you wanted to kind of go it on your own in the title business? So you're a female business owner. And I would imagine when you started out, you didn't get out of college and you just said, okay, I'm going to buy my own business right now. I would imagine you worked for somebody else and then eventually you decided to go it on your own. But what brought you to that decision?
So in 2015, I was managing a title company in Baton Rouge, and the owner passed away suddenly. We got a call one night. He passed away in the middle of the night. And so the company ended up having to shut down. We were given 60 days in notice because it operated under his insurance license. So one of the attorneys that I worked with at that firm decided that he wanted to go out on his own, and he asked me if I would partner with him. So we opened Southern Oaks Title. And then a year later, right after the flood, I ended up buying out his interest in the company to become the sole owner.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome. And I would imagine this was sort of like a dream of yours anyway. Own your own business. You kind of have that final say on decisions. And that way you can make sure that you know, your belief system when it comes to how a title company should be ran is the way it should be, and you don't have to have another party there to bounce that off of.
Yeah, that was probably definitely the best thing I've ever done career-wise, was taking that jump, either, you know, to open the company initially or to buy out my partner and go out on my own and be the sole owner. That way I had 100% say in everything, so...
Gotcha. Now, y'all are located in Baton Rouge. Where at exactly?
So we're located off Essen in one of the United Plaza buildings. So we're in 2 United Plaza in Baton Rouge, right off of Essen. It's a block away from the Secretary of State and the Archives buildings.
Okay, so I'm gonna play a little role play game with you here. So I'm a realtor, and I've got a buyer, and this buyer just cannot make it. They hate Baton Rouge. The traffic's horrible. I don't want to go out there and fight all that traffic. Just sign a few papers. What is Southern Oaks Title to do? So what service would you say? Hey, you don't have to come out to Baton Rouge. How would you solve that problem?
So, for example, if they're closing at a local title company here in or local using a local broker here in Denham, then we can bring the closing to that broker's office. So we can close at their real estate office. They have a copy machine. Usually when you purchase, you have to fax for funding, and there's some other documentation and stuff that you have to do. It's not as simple as just getting signatures. So if they are buying, we can offer to close at a different location. We partner with Hancock Whitney Bank. We have use of their their conference room over at Hancock Whitney Bank, so we can close there. Or if they have, like I said, if they're buying with C.J. Brown, which is now Ladder and Bloom, they have an office in Denham Springs. We can close at their office, so we're able to do that.
That's pretty awesome. So you're basically mobile. I mean, you can go to the client, and that's a huge thing, because a lot of people feel obligated that they might have to go to the actual title company. Becky has partnered with a lot of people in the Livingston Parish area, where she literally has, you could almost call them satellite offices, that places she can go to, like Hancock Whitney, and use their conference room in order to make sure that your loan gets closed and all the T's get dotted, or whatever they say. T's get crossed. Whatever it is. I dot my T's. Okay. So,
I don't know how you write.
It's horrible, trust me. So most people assume that, if you're not in the construction industry and you're talking about a title company, let me tell you, 99.9% of the people out there have no idea what the title company does. They assume that a title transfer when it comes to home ownership is just like when you're transferring the title on a vehicle. Basically you're just signing a paper from one owner to the other. Obviously, you being in this business 21 years, there is a lot more involved in that. So tell me exactly, if someone sat down, they were from Mars and they had no idea what title company was or what they did, kind of break down what a title company does in a typical transaction.
Sure thing, Jim. So first, our sole job is for the purpose of being able to issue an insurance policy to the bank in case there is a title defect, and to the owner if they request that. So one, we are an insurance company. Most people don't realize that. So in order to do that, we have to fill certain search requirements. So we have to search the title history to the property. If you're purchasing, we have to search it 30 years. If you are refinancing, then you have to search it 10 years or 2 links, whichever is the longer period of that. So we start by we call that an abstract of the property, to abstract that back, the ownership back, to make sure everybody who needed to sign has signed. There's no mortgages, liens, judgments from a prior owner that have carried over that are going to affect your title. And so we're ensuring the bank that if they have to go to foreclosure, that they will be able to foreclose without any issues.
Wow. And so that's a lot harder than going to the car dealership and basically saying, I want to buy this car and here's my trade-in, and signing a paper. There is a lot involved in that. And I would imagine y'all have to trace back sometimes maybe even a century in order to find the original owner to a property or find the original paperwork or how, nowadays and this is my layman thought on this, not being, knee deep in titles every day. But I would imagine nowadays it's a lot easier than it used to be with the digital advent, the digital equation coming into play. There was probably a time where you had to go through books and just kind of, basically track that way as to find the owner to a property.
Yes. So when I first started doing this back in 1999, and I started abstracting, we did have to go through the book. So you had a portion of the search that was available online through indexes. And then the rest of it, you would actually have to go back and pull mortgage and conveyance books through certain years. And you would have to search through every name and find and look for your stuff. So It was a lot more complicated. Now the transition, everything is switched to going online. Most of the stuff, I would say 90% of our searches can be done just through the online portals that the clerks offer. So
that's amazing. So the time, what did that save in time? Like something could take how long back then versus how long now?
Oh, it easily cut the time in at least half. And then the accuracy of it, just because when you're able to search specific names, whereas before you may pull a book that's all conveyances for the letter M for these 3 years, and you're having to go through and rely on your eyes to catch. And when you're looking at pages and pages and pages, maybe 50 pages with the McDaniel in it, then it might be easy for you to miss something. Whereas if you do a search with a first and last name, it's a lot more accurate.
That's wow. Yeah, that's kind of like the best thing about one of the better things about technology now is that it's really made everything faster, regardless of industry. But the title industry is a good example of how it not only saves you work, it saves you frustration. It saves the homeowner frustration. They can get those house closings done, half the time, like you say. And it probably saves, from a business owner perspective, a lot of labor. You don't have to hire somebody to sit there and look for all that stuff, or as many people as you normally would. Now, let me ask you something in the title industry. So I watched a podcast, and I actually texted you the link to this podcast. There's a gentleman that was a guest on a show, and he is like the biggest fraudster in the history of real estate. And this guy went to jail for, I think, 15 years. He ended up, it's a long story, but the guy ended up basically getting out of jail because he found out some information from another inmate of where this inmate was burying money. So he used that to get himself out of jail. He basically told the FBI, I will tell you where this $6 million is buried, but if I do that, you got to give me early release. He was supposed to serve like 25 years. So he had defrauded the real estate industry out of something like, it might have been $100 million or something. It was an insane amount of money. He went on the run. He changed his name and all this. It took him forever to catch him. But the way he was doing this, one of the ways was he was defrauding everybody from the title company to the loan companies. So he would get a loan with one bank, and then he would get a loan with another bank. And it was crazy how he would do it. He would get a loan from another bank in another name, and then he would buy his own property, and from his first fake name. And basically they would deposit that money. He would take that money out, and then he just never would pay the property. Then he'd open up another name, and he would do this. And he was doing this for like several years before they ever caught it. And it goes into a long thing, but I'm leading up to this. How prevalent would you say fraud is in the title industry? Is it something you have to really watch out for and be cognizant of?
Yes, and I think nowadays more so, wire fraud is the big thing. They are trying to find a way to get either the buyers to fraudulently wire funds in anticipation of a closing to a fake account, pretending to be the title company, but it really is going to another account, which then they transfer. Or they're trying to get the title company to wire funds maybe for a mortgage payoff wire funds to a seller that should go to that party, and they're sending fraudulent instructions and trying to get them to wire those funds to another. So I think that's probably the most prevalent fraud that we see these days. And of course, there are procedures that are in place to prevent that. One, at the bottom of every email that we send, it gives information about wire fraud. It says that we'll never ask you to wire money in an email conversation to the closing. So that's one thing. And then two, there's a wire verification method that you're required to use according to the best practices, which is, our code that we model our business after. So, and that requires us to call, get a phone number not from an email if we are asked to wire it from a non-interested third party. We're called to verify those wiring instructions before we initiate and send a wire, whether it be to a seller or whether it be to a bank for a mortgage payoff. So
okay, yeah, I would imagine it's something you've really got to keep track of. Interestingly enough, in this particular gentleman's case, the title company is who eventually caught him. So he had got through the banks, he had got through all these other entities, and it was the title company that eventually said something's not right. And they started investigating how many properties this person owned. And it was like tons of properties, and some of them he would have 4 and 5 mortgages on. And that's how they eventually caught this guy. So kudos to the title company. So let me ask you, this is something I've always been not concerned about, but wondered about personally, and that is who controls the title company selection, the buyer or the seller, or is it just kind of whoever wants to do it? What if they disagree on it? How do people go about picking a closing company?
So the buyer has the ultimate say in who decides where you close. Now, there are some exceptions to that. So if you are asking your seller in the purchase agreement to pay for closing costs, they can put it in the purchase agreement contract that they wish to close with their selected title company. So that's when the seller would get to pick. Of course, that has to be in the purchase agreement contract or a verbal agreement between the parties. Other than that, the buyer has the final say. But I would say most often what we see is that buyers don't have a title company, so they don't know who to use. So they often ask for a referral from the realtor or from the mortgage lender that they're using of who they close with, who they recommend, because those are the professionals that are dealing with title companies every day. So those are going to be they're going to have a name to give to their client.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what kind of made me think of that question. McHugh, did you know Millie Bunch?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
Here's a quick story. Millie Bunch had a title company in Denham Springs for many, many years, and my father-in-law would do all his closings with Millie Bunch. Great lady. Mm-hmm. So when we were looking at buying a house, when I moved to Denham, got married, there was a particular house we had in mind, and we went to that house, and we loved that house. Interestingly, it's close to the house I have now, and so we wanted to get it, and we made an offer. The offer was accepted, and my father-in-law, being the staunch Cajun man that he was, he was closing with Millie Bunch. That's who he wanted to close with. Well, these people had a title company they wanted to go with, and he said, "No, I'm not going to buy the house unless you let me close with Millie Bunch," because he felt like Millie Bunch was going to look out for his best interest. They refused to sell the house. And so it was fine. We ended up with the house. We eventually would have wanted more. But I found it interesting that they actually walked away from the deal over the closing. It's probably pretty rare, I would imagine, especially Millie Bunch had a great reputation here. And was very well known. So it was not like this was someone they were concerned. It wasn't on the up and up or anything. It was just, I don't know. I can't really say why they did or didn't do it, but I found that interesting. And I'm like, I wonder if you could, if you're a buyer, if you could like force someone that I get to pick who the title company is. But I guess they can always walk away from the deal at the end of it.
Yeah, so if you have not entered into a purchase agreement contract, then they don't have to accept your contract if you're not going to close with the company. If they want to put that in a counter offer and you refuse to sign that, then they can not accept it. So, but I would say that's very rare for the most part. Most buyers and sellers are not.
Yeah, that seller's wanting to sell that house. I would imagine so, too.
I did come across that a few years ago. My dad was purchasing a house, and the seller lived in California. And, of course, he wanted to close and use my company. And so there was a battle back and forth between him and the seller. The seller kept countering, no, we want to choose the title company. And so what we ended up settling on is that our company offered to charge him no fees on the seller side as long as they went close with Southern Oaks Title.
Interesting. So let me ask you this, with the title industry, like many industries, there's incentives that are offered. Okay. So there's a closing company might promote something like money off. You get so much money off. If you close with us, we'll take $1,000 off in the month of July or something like that. But I would imagine the title industry is also one in that you need to kind of pay attention to what you're really getting when you get those incentives. And what I mean by that is the title company industry standard on their fees? Someone that may not know may assume that it costs, an X amount of dollars to close with the title company, whether it's Southern Oaks Title or whether it's XYZ Title. Or are there, can you set your fees at what you want? How does that work? And do people need to say, well, yeah, I am getting $1,000 off at XYZ Title, but they're not doing their due diligence on how much would it cost me to close with this other closing company?
So title fees are broken into two different aspects. So you have your set fees, which are going to be your title insurance, your clerk recording fees. So title insurance is set by the Department of Insurance. That does not change from title company to title company. That's a flat rate, and it goes based on your loan amount and your purchase price. So that's not going to change. Neither is your recording fee. Those are set by the clerk of court in which you're buying the property. So those fees are going to stay the same as well. Now, your title company has their own fees that they charge. So they charge for the abstract, the title examination, the settlement fee. And those fees are subject to change and do differ greatly from title company to title company.
I see. Okay. So probably in the buyer's interest or the person choosing the title company, probably it's in their best interest to maybe check 2 or 3 and just kind of see what those other fees are and see if it makes sense. It's kind of like if you mark something up to $500 and you say, I'm going to give you $100 off, which would make it $400, but then you can buy that somewhere else for $300. You're still paying $400 when you could have paid $300. So make sure, listeners, that you do your due diligence when you're dealing with title companies. There's a lot of good title companies out there. But their fees can vary from company to company. All right, so I would imagine that closing companies rely primarily or almost primarily off of like referral business. One thing you're not going to find out of a closing company probably is, Becky, you're not sitting in your office and somebody walk in and say, hey, I need to close with a title company today. Would you mind, helping me out with this? I'm sure that you rely on a network of people to refer you clients. Probably the title industry, in my opinion, is one of the most involved in that, because you have to have those referrals on your end. You're really you're kind of the last piece in the puzzle on the way. So for example, a realtor is going to sell a house. They've got a client and they've got to sell that house before it gets to a closing. I'm a paint guy, so I'm always the last one out. The architect usually is the first, and then, it goes down to the subs. The subs come to me to get the paint, and the last thing that's done is the painting of the house. Same thing with you. You're kind of the last thing that homeowner sees before they close on that house. So that being said, who are good referral partners? Like, who do you look for as people to build relationships with in your industry?
Absolutely. So most of our referral partners are realtors or loan officers. And then we also work with people in the construction spheres, that builders.
Yeah.
And then also investors who flip houses or who are buying rental homes. So those are all great referral partners that we look to team up with.
Yeah, I would imagine investors and builders in particular are really high volume. They're especially builders. You get in with a good builder who's building, 9 houses a month or something like that. That's a really good person to build a relationship with. And I would imagine paint guys are pretty good for you too.
Absolutely. This paint guy especially.
That's right. Well, I like the way she thinks. And real estate agents and closing companies kind of go hand in hand, I would imagine. And the thing with a real estate agent that I'm speaking like I am one, but I would imagine the thing about a real estate agent when it comes to a title company is it requires some trust. So they've got to know that you're not going to drop a ball on them. And that's kind of twofold. Number one, if the closing company doesn't do their due diligence and do their job properly, it is going to ruin the sale, or it could possibly ruin the sale. The other side of the coin is it's going to make them look bad. Even from my perspective as a paint salesman, there's a lot of things that I do with other people in order to satisfy a customer's needs, whatever it may be. And I have to rely on somebody else to do their job for my job to get completed. And when they don't do everything they can do, it looks bad on me and I get frustrated with them. And so, when a real estate agent and a title company get together, I would imagine that relationship and trust is extremely important. But when you have that, I would imagine that it's a relationship that you don't really sway away from unless something occurs. The title company moves out of town, or they're pretty loyal to each other is what I'm getting at, I would imagine.
Yes.
So the key would be build the relationships with the realtors and the builders and all those sorts of things, but especially those realtors, because those are the ones a regular homeowner is not going to know a closing company. I mean, if they buy a house every 30 years, they're not going to say, well, I want to close with these people because I saw them on a commercial. They're going to rely on what the realtor says because the realtor closes with this person every day. So all realtors, I'm calling out to you. Check out Becky. Check out Southern Egg Title. If you don't know her, she'll take you to lunch. Get to know her. She'd love to talk to you, and maybe you can become some good partners. A woman-owned business here, and sharp lady. So I would encourage anyone to reach out to Southern Egg Title. So tell me a little bit about when you thought to yourself, that was a strange closing. And you don't have to get into names, but what would you say was a weird closing for you, or just strange?
So last week we had a buyer show up at the closing with her inspection report, and she wanted to negotiate her inspection items at the closing. Of course, you have a window of time to do that long before you ever get to the closing table. So unfortunately, she was a little disappointed. So I had to go through the purchase agreement with her, explain to her, this is your time frame that you had to do that. You did not do that within this time frame. So there's nothing more that we can do right now at the closing table.
Oh, wow.
I've had, at a previous title company, I have had a buyer show up. They call it a cash sale if you're not getting a loan on the property, but they actually took that literally and brought a briefcase of $185,000 cash to the closing, which we were, of course, not able to accept. So we told them they needed to take that back to the bank and bring us a certified check, which is what's required in order to close. We can't.
That's pretty awesome.
We can't take $185,000 cash. I don't think I would want to even be responsible for that.
Oh man, that's interesting. Yeah, that'll pile up a table.
Yep. And then, we've had closings with family members of inherited property that were interesting. Family members not getting along. You always have that one black sheep of the family.
Oh, yeah.
We had one where we gave closing checks out, and then after the closing, they were visiting, and one of the sellers tried to steal the grandparents' check. So that's crazy.
Stuff. I love the money story. That's awesome. I would have probably laid that all out and said, let me just take a picture with it. So let me ask you this. You've been in the title industry a long time. And I'm sure as much as passionate as you are about the title industry, and as much as you know about the title industry, there's been a time when you've thought, I would love to see this change, or I would love to see that change, or maybe had a good idea of something the title industry may not be doing that they could be doing. Give me an example of something that you would maybe change if you could in the title industry.
Well, I think I have my little protocols that are set up the way I operate in my office. And so when I was put into an ownership position, I was able to make changes in my organization that I thought a lot of other title companies may have missed, certain things on certain checks and balances that I always felt were important to make sure the accuracy of the file. So that's one thing I implemented. The title industry as a whole, I can't think anything right off the top of my head that I would want to change. We had a lot of changes that happened in 2015 to our industry that I think have benefited it for the better. The Know Before You Go Act, where you're no longer getting your HUD settlement statement 2 hours before the closing. We're getting that 3 days before you go to the closing, which one helps the title industry prepare better, because we're not getting a call, hey, we need to close this in 1 hour, and with no heads up. So it gives you kind of more of a preparation time. It makes the buyers, they're seeing some of the documents beforehand before they come in to sign it. So I think that was a really, really good move. I was impressed with the title industry on that, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that other than in my organization that I changed.
Right. Well, speaking of changes, so everything's moving along fine, and then in March we have this COVID hit. And it not only probably changed the title industry, but it changed every industry in the way in which we conduct business in a lot of ways. I'm sure the title industry in particular, because you rely on being kind of close with people, and you're in a room, you're tight, you're signing documents. What has Southern Oaks Title done to kind of adjust? When all this came out, all of us as businesses were like, we don't know what we can do. We don't know what we aren't supposed to do, what we're allowed to do. Are we important? Important's not the word I'm looking for, McKee. Essential. Thank you. Well, if you're essential, you are important. But we did not know if we were essential, and are we, and all these sorts of things. There was a lot of confusion out there. So the dust settled, and I'm sure Southern Oaks Title, like any other business out there, said, okay, we've got to come up with some parameters to adjust to this. And so tell me a little bit about what y'all have done.
So when the stay-at-home order took place in March, we were considered essential employees. So our office remained open. We transitioned things a little bit differently. My staff worked from the house, and I worked in the office to be able to monitor everything. And so then we still had closings going on. So interest rates were still at one of the all-time lows back in February. So we had as they predicted the virus and its impact in the United States, the interest rates plummeted in February. So I was probably working 16-hour days in March, doing closings. A lot of people were refinancing. People were mostly refinancing. We had a couple of purchases where people were taking advantage of that interest rate. So for the first part of that in March, beginning into early April, we were still extremely busy. So, and I was working at the office nonstop to get everything that we had in our pipeline closed. And so after that, we did see kind of a little bit of a lull for a couple of weeks. There were, you weren't going out looking at houses, so there were no new purchase orders coming in because people didn't feel that it was safe to go out and look. They're not opening up their homes to showing, so it just kind of took a pause for a couple of weeks, and then we kind of kicked back into gear after the stay-at-home order was lifted, and it's been crazy busy ever since. So, but to answer your question as far as what we are doing to make people feel safer, so we can split the parties up. Definitely in March and April and half of May, we did that. We had the buyers in one room and the sellers in another closing room. So that you limited the amount of people that was in the room. Of course, we sanitize everything after each closing. And then we, spaced out our chairs so that, they're appropriate distances apart. We wore face masks and gloves, all that good stuff. Gave people new pens so that way they weren't writing with someone, a pen that had already been used.
Yeah.
And during March, we were limiting realtors from coming to the closing unless they were a necessary party that needed to sign. So a lot of our realtors did not get to attend the closings with their buyers or sellers at that time.
Sure. So you definitely took all precautions you possibly could, and good for you. We've all had to adjust it, to that, and it's good to see that Southern Oaks Title is taking that serious and doing everything they can to make that buyer feel safe.
Absolutely.
So very good. So, and you brought up the interest rates, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the overall industry effect that you may feel that COVID has had. So in my industry, I have not seen any drop, but to be certain, you have to be careful maybe of what you're hearing out there, because I hear from certain news articles or whatever, you name it, not the Livingston Parish News, of course, but you'll hear that the economy is just horrible, and I am not seeing that. And I'm not seeing that not only in my industry, but many, many, many industries out there. I know people that work in all walks of life, and everybody's busy right now. Or I say everybody, I'm sure there's people that aren't, but the majority of them, even the hair, the people that do hair now, that thank God they've been allowed back to work, are busy. They cannot keep up. My son had an afro for like a month. I mean, he was almost like a headbanger from back in the 80s with his hair, because we could not get in to get his hair cut. I don't have that problem, but so let's talk about a little bit about your industry. And have y'all seen a big drop? Has it held steady? Have you seen an increase? I know with the rates dropping, that had to help.
So yeah, with the rates going lower, we're getting more of a refinance business. And obviously, anytime rates drop, your purchase business is going to increase because people can afford a bigger home, or they look at making that move during that time if they've considered it before and just maybe have never made that decision. So anytime you see the interest rate drop, you're going to see the housing market increase.
Yeah.
So it's directly related.
I would imagine.
So we've been extremely busy.
Yeah, I would imagine. So if you had a crystal ball here and you looked into it and it showed you the next 6 months in the real estate industry overall, the rates, they're still historically low. But I'm not so sure about the restrictions. What I get concerned about in the industry is on the banking side. So with COVID brings a lot of ifs. And I'll give you an example. If I'm a restaurant owner and I want to buy a new house right now and the rates are really low, I can close with, Becky and lower, maybe refinance and lower my note or buy that house I was wanting to get. All that's all well and good. But I go to the bank and I fill out that application and I say I'm a restaurant owner. Guess what? I would imagine from a big bank perspective, they're going to be looking at that like, man, we don't even know if, what phase we're going to be in next month. And here's a restaurant owner wanting a bunch of money, and restaurants are going to be the first thing that close if we have to shut things down again, God forbid. And of course, we all hope that never happens. But from a business standpoint, I can imagine a bank looks at that now where they may not have looked at that as any kind of deal before. So, 6 months, you're looking in that crystal ball. Do you see any kind of change in the housing market overall? Do you see it going up maybe still, or?
Well, the Fed, I think, is going to plan to keep the interest rates low. I read an article that said that they anticipate that happening through at least 2021. So as long as the interest rates remain low, I think you're still going to see the majority of people that are going to be out there purchasing or refinancing. So as far as small business owners, it's just going to depend on your relationship with the bank. Certain banks, I've heard, certain lending institutions are making exceptions for income that was missing during the months during the shutdown and the stay-at-home order. So I have heard good news on that they're not necessarily penalizing you as if you had no income during that time if it was forced, but if you were one of those businesses, because we don't anticipate long run. Hopefully we will not move back to a complete total shutdown.
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully not. I hope we never see that again. And thankfully the governor spoke yesterday, and I know some people were concerned about him actually going back to phase one because of the numbers having such a dramatic increase over just a couple of days. But fortunately, he just kind of yelled at us and and kind of reiterated, wear a mask when you're in public, those sorts of things. So fortunately, we're in phase two still. So we've talked a lot about business, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, when does this girl have time to have fun? You're running this business 16 hours a day. You've got all these kids, and of course they're fun. But what do you like to do for fun? So outside of closing houses, which you probably feel is fun, what other kind of fun do you like to do?
Obviously, I love to spend time with my children. I love to travel and go on vacations. Obviously, we're not doing that right now. So
yeah.
But and I love to swim. We have a pool, so we have a lot of good family time in the evenings with the kids swimming out in the pool. That's
fantastic. I love to travel as well, and yeah, we can't travel right now. You could, I guess, but it's like Disney World right now. It's open, but do you really? At this point, it's a really tough route to go somewhere like Disney World. So. Okay, during each podcast, what I like to do is I like to have a little fun, totally unrelated question to anything we've been talking about. It's just something fun to kind of wrap it up. So I was sitting there last night and I'm like, what's a good one to ask Becky? So I came up with this. I thought this was interesting, and I'm actually curious about this. So someone comes up to you and they say, we're going to grant you a superpower. You can either fly or you can be invisible. One of the two. Which one do you choose?
I don't know. I don't know how much I would like to fly. I don't know if I would be uncomfortable and scared of heights. So I might have to lean to being more invisible.
Okay. What about you, McKee? What would you pick?
Fly.
You're flying? Well, interestingly enough, 72% of people choose flying. But you and I would both choose being invisible. And I'll tell you why. I would. So flying, basically I can get anywhere I want, but I can get anywhere I want now. It just takes a lot longer than if I flew. So if I'm invisible, you can't be invisible. That's like not possible. So I can still get to Florida without physically flying. But if I'm invisible, I can like spy on people and I can do all those things. And look, let's face it. And McHugh, same way. We're nosy people. Newspaper guys are nosy. They want to know the scoop. Podcast guys are nosy. So if I'm invisible, I can totally find out what people are saying and all kinds of stuff. It would be great to be invisible sometimes. So I'm like you. I'd like to be invisible. That's interesting. So tell us how we can find you. Do you have a Facebook that people can go to?
Yes. So we have a Facebook page, Southern Oaks Title. And then we are located in Baton Rouge off Essen. And you can reach me at our office line at 225-769-5032.
And as I said earlier, a very experienced female woman-owned business that I highly recommend. If you have a closing need, give Southern Oaks Title a call and try them out. Highly recommend this lady right here. You can find Chapman's Paint Place podcast at paintpodcast.com and all social media, including YouTube, by simply searching Chapman's Paint Place podcast. I would like to thank the jack of all trades himself, McHugh David, for engineering this podcast. The Livingston Parish News for the space, the queen of all closings, Becky McDaniel Simms of Southern Oaks Title, for joining me today, and all you podcast listeners for your support. Please like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast so we can continue to bring you more. Until next time, I am Jim Chapman, wishing you peace, love, and